My name is Sarah. I am 34 years old, and as I stood in the dim light of our guest room closet holding a hidden medical file, I realized that the 3 years of needles, surgeries, and heartbreaking negative tests weren't just bad luck. They were a lie constructed by the man sleeping in the next room. I stared at the date on the paper, my hand trembling so hard the page rattled like a dry leaf in the wind. It was a receipt for a procedure that had happened 4 years ago, a full year before we even started trying for a baby. I couldn't breathe, and the room seemed to tilt sideways as the realization washed over me. Just then, the floorboard in the hallway creaked. I froze, shoving the file under my shirt and pressing my back against the hanging winter coats, listening to the heavy footsteps of my husband, Mark, pausing right outside the door. Before we go any further, I need to tell you that this story deals with the heavy realities of infertility, medical manipulation, and deep emotional trauma, so please take care of yourself while listening. If you believe that every woman deserves the truth about her own body, please hit that subscribe button to support more stories like this. To understand how I ended up hiding in a closet from the man I loved, you have to understand how desperately I wanted to be a mother. It wasn't just a want. It was a physical ache that lived in the center of my chest. I met Mark when I was 29, and he was everything I thought I needed: stable, charming, and seemingly obsessed with building a future together. On our third date, over Italian food, he looked me in the eye and said, "Sarah, I don't just want a wife. I want a family, a big one with noise and chaos and love." I melted, because that was exactly what I wanted too. We were married within a year. By 31, we stopped using protection. I remember the excitement of those first few months, the secret smiles we shared across the dinner table, convinced that every tiny symptom was a sign of life. But month after month, the tests were stark, blindingly white. I told Mark, maybe we should see a doctor just to check. He pulled me into a hug, kissing the top of my head, and said, "Baby, you're stressing too much. Stress is the #1 killer of conception. Just relax. It'll happen." I tried to relax, I really did. I started doing yoga. I cut out caffeine. I tracked my cycle until I knew my body better than I knew the back of my hand. But nothing happened. 6 months turned into a year, and the silence in our spare bedroom started to feel heavy, like it was judging me. I finally put my foot down and made appointments for both of us at a fertility clinic. Mark was reluctant, complaining about the cost and the invasiveness, but he eventually agreed to go. I went through the battery of tests, the blood draws, the ultrasounds, the dye tests that made me cramp for days. Everything on my end looked normal, maybe a little low on ovarian reserve, but nothing that should have prevented pregnancy entirely. Then it was Mark's turn. He went to the appointment alone, because I had a work conflict I couldn't move. When he came home that night, he looked devastated. He sat on the edge of the bed, his head in his hands, and said, "The doctor said my count is a little low and the motility isn't great, but he thinks with your reserve being borderline, it's just a bad combination." My heart broke for him. I sat beside him, rubbing his back, and whispered, "We can fix this. There's IUI, there's IVF. We have options, Mark." He looked up at me, his eyes wet, and asked, "Are you sure? It's so much money. Ideally, we just keep trying naturally." "I'm sure," I said, feeling a surge of determination. "I will do whatever it takes." I had no idea that whatever it takes would mean destroying my body for a ghost. We started with IUI, intrauterine insemination. It was invasive and uncomfortable, and the waiting periods were torture. 3 rounds. 3 failures. Each time the doctor called with the negative result, I collapsed a little more inside. Mark was always there to catch me, holding me while I sobbed, telling me, "I'm so sorry, Sarah. I know how much you want this. Maybe we should stop. Maybe it's not meant to be." But I couldn't stop. "No," I told him through my tears after the 3rd failure. "We have to try IVF. It's the gold standard. It has to work." He sighed, a long, heavy sound that I interpreted as exhaustion, but now realize was something else entirely. "Okay," he said. "If you want to put yourself through that, I'll support you." IVF was a different beast entirely. The injections started, huge needles I had to jam into my stomach every night. My belly became a map of bruises, purple and yellow splotches that ached to the touch. My hormones went haywire. I was crying over commercials, snapping at my coworkers, and feeling bloated and sick constantly. Mark was helpful in his way. He would mix the medications for me, lining up the vials on the counter. "Here you go, brave girl," he'd say, handing me the syringe. I remember looking at him one night, the needle in my hand, and asking, "Do you think this is working? Do you feel it?" He hesitated just for a split second before smiling and saying, "I hope so, Sarah. I really hope so." We went in for the egg retrieval. They got 12 eggs. I was ecstatic. But the next day, the embryologist called. "Sarah," her voice was gentle, "I'm afraid the fertilization rate was very low. Only 2 embryos made it to day 3 and they arrested. They stopped growing." I felt like the floor had dropped out from under me. "Why?" I choked out. "Was it the egg quality?" "It's hard to say," she said. "Sometimes it's the egg, sometimes it's the sperm quality. It looked like the sperm struggled to penetrate, even with ICSI." I relayed this to Mark later. He got instantly defensive. "They're blaming me," he snapped, packing the living room. "I told you this was a waste of money. The doctor said my sample was decent enough for this." "They aren't blaming anyone, Mark," I said, trying to calm him down despite my own grief. "It's just science. We try again." "Again?" He stopped packing and stared at me like I was crazy. "Sarah, look at you. You're a mess. You're gaining weight. You're miserable. Why are we doing this?" "Because I want a baby," I screamed, the frustration finally boiling over. "And I thought you did too." He went quiet, his jaw working. "I do," he said softly. "I just hate seeing you like this." We did a second round. More money drained from our savings. More bruises. More nights where I lay awake wondering if I was broken. This time, we got 1 embryo. We transferred it. I spent the 2-week wait talking to my stomach, pleading with the universe to let this little spark of life stick. Then came the bleeding. It started heavy and fast. And I knew, before I even called the clinic, that it was over. I lay in the bathroom floor, curled in a ball, feeling an emptiness so profound it felt like it would swallow me whole. Mark found me there. He didn't cry. He just knelt down, stroked my hair, and said, "SHH, it's okay. Maybe this is a sign. Maybe we're just meant to be us." That was the first time I felt a prickle of something wrong. Not suspicion, not yet. Just confusion. How could he accept this so easily? A few weeks later, I was cleaning out our home office. We needed to gather documents for our taxes, and Mark was terrible at filing. I was sorting through a stack of papers on his desk when I found a receipt from a pharmacy I didn't recognize. It was for a prescription filled 3 towns over. I frowned. Why would he drive 40 minutes to a pharmacy when we had 3 within walking distance? I looked at the medication name. It was just a generic code, nothing recognizable. I almost threw it away, but something stopped me. I pulled out my phone and typed the code into the search bar. The results loaded, and I stared at the screen. It was a high-dose testosterone supplement. I was confused. I clicked a medical link. Exogenous testosterone use in males can severely inhibit sperm production, often leading to temporary or permanent sterility. My mouth went dry. Why was he taking this? He never mentioned low testosterone. And if he was taking it, why didn't the fertility doctor catch it in his blood work? Wait. I realized I had never actually seen Mark's lab results. He always handled the portal login for his side of things, claiming he didn't want to burden me with the admin. I sat in the office chair, my heart hammering a frantic rhythm against my ribs. I decided to log in. I went to the fertility clinic's website on his computer. The password was saved. I clicked login. I navigated to the lab results tab. It was empty. I blinked. That couldn't be right. We had been patients there for 2 years. I scrolled back. Nothing. Just then, the front door opened downstairs. "Sarah," Mark's voice boomed through the house. I picked up Thai food. I slammed the laptop shut, my hands shaking. "Coming," I yelled back, my voice sounding thin and strangled to my own ears. I went downstairs and tried to act normal. We ate pad Thai, and he talked about his day at the engineering firm. I watched him. I watched the way he chewed, the way he smiled, the way he seemed so completely unbothered by the tragedy that was our life. "Mark," I said, keeping my voice casual, "the clinic called today. They want updated blood work from both of us before we discuss a third round." He didn't look up from his noodles. "Really? Again? Didn't we just do that?" "Yeah," I lied, "but they said something about a system error losing some files. They need to rerun your panel specifically." He froze. Just for a second, his fork paused halfway to his mouth. "That's incompetent," he said, his voice dropping an octave. "Maybe we should switch clinics." "No," I pressed. "I like Dr. Evans. Just go in tomorrow morning. It takes 10 minutes. He set his fork down. "I can't tomorrow. Big meeting." "Wednesday, then." "Sarah, drop it," he snapped. "I'll handle it when I handle it." The anger in his eyes was sudden and sharp. That night, while he slept, I lay awake staring at the ceiling. My intuition was screaming at me. I needed to know. The next day, I called the clinic. "Hi, this is Sarah Miller. I'm looking at my husband Mark's portal, and I can't see his semen analysis results. Can you re-upload them?" There was a long pause on the other end. "One moment, Mrs. Miller," the receptionist said. Music played. Then, the nurse came on the line. "Hi, Sarah. I'm looking at Mark's file. We actually don't have any official analysis on record from our lab." I gripped the phone. "What do you mean? We did IUI, you need a sample for that." "Yes," she said, sounding confused. "But Mark brought those samples in from home, pre-washed. He signed a waiver saying he had them processed at an outside urology lab because our hours didn't work for his schedule. He provided paper copies of the analysis each time." My stomach dropped. He brought the paperwork." "Yes, it looks standard. Is there a problem?" "No," I whispered. "No problem." I hung up. He had forged them. He had to have forged them. But why? I took the afternoon off work. I went home and tore the house apart. I didn't know what I was looking for, but I knew Mark was a hoarder of documents. He kept everything, just in case. I checked the filing cabinet. Nothing. I checked the safe, just our passports and deeds. Then I remembered the guest room closet. He kept a box of old college stuff in there, high up on the shelf. I dragged a chair over and pulled the box down. It was full of old textbooks and wires. But at the very bottom, under a stack of old magazines, was a blue folder. I opened it. And that brings us back to the moment I found myself standing in the closet, holding the truth. The receipt wasn't just for testosterone. Stapled behind it was a surgical discharge summary. Patient, Mark Miller. Date, 4 years ago. Procedure, bilateral vasectomy. Notes, procedure successful. Patient confirms no desire for future fertility preservation. He had a vasectomy. He was sterile. He had been sterile the entire time. The floorboard creaked again outside the door. "Sarah," Mark's voice was right there. "Are you in here?" I shoved the folder under my sweatshirt, holding it against my stomach, and grabbed a winter coat from the hanger, pretending I was sorting them. The door handle turned. Mark stepped in. He looked at me, then at the open box on the floor. His eyes narrowed. "What are you doing?" "Cleaning," I said, my heart pounding so hard I thought he could see it through my shirt. I was looking for winter coats for donation. He stared at me for a long, agonizing moment. You look pale, he said. I don't feel well, I managed to say. Maybe it's the hormones still leaving my system. His face softened, but it didn't reach his eyes. You should rest, come on. He reached out a hand. I looked at his hand. The hand that had mixed my injections. The hand that had held mine, while I cried over a baby he knew could never exist. I took his hand. I let him lead me to the bedroom. I lay down. He kissed my forehead. I'll make you some tea. As soon as he went downstairs, I got up. I took photos of every page in the folder with my phone. I emailed them to my work address. I emailed them to my sister. I put the folder in my bag. Then I waited. I knew I couldn't confront him yet. Not here, not alone. He had lied for years. He had watched me undergo surgery. He had watched me bleed. Who knew what else he was capable of? I waited until he was in the shower the next morning. I packed a bag. I took the folder. I drove straight to a lawyer's office. Sitting in that leather chair, explaining the situation to a divorce attorney, I felt like I was telling a story about a stranger. This is battery, the lawyer said, her face grim. This is medical fraud, this is. I've never seen anything like this. He let me do IVF, I whispered. He let me inject myself with hormones. We're going to destroy him, she said. But before the legal battle, I needed the confrontation. I needed him to say it. I asked him to meet me at a coffee shop, a public place. When he walked in, he looked annoyed. Sarah, why are we meeting here? I have work. I didn't say a word. I just slid the photocopy of the vasectomy discharge paper across the table. He looked down. He froze. The color drained from his face so fast he looked like a corpse. He looked up at me, and for the first time, the mask was gone. There was no charm, no fake sympathy. Just panic. Where did you get this? He hissed. Why? I asked. My voice was steady, colder than I ever thought I could be. Just tell me why. He leaned in, his voice a venomous whisper. Because you wouldn't shut up about it, Sarah. You were obsessed. If I told you I didn't want kids, you would have left me. I knew you would. So you tortured me instead. I didn't torture you, he argued, oblivious to the people staring. I was trying to keep us together, I thought. I thought after a few rounds you'd give up, you'd accept it. We could just be happy. Happy, I laughed, a dry, sharp sound. You watched me cry myself to sleep for 3 years. You watched me grieve. I was comforting you. You were gaslighting me. I stood up. I'm leaving you, Mark. My lawyer will be in touch, and I'm suing you for the medical costs and for pain and suffering. You can't do that, he sneered. We're married, it's our money. Watch me. I walked out. I walked to my car, sat in the driver's seat, and for the first time in years, I didn't cry. I felt rage, pure cleansing rage. The next year was a war. The divorce was messy. He tried to paint me as unstable, blaming the hormones. But the evidence was undeniable. My lawyer found the urologist who performed his vasectomy. We found the records where he had forged the semen analysis using Photoshop. It came out that he had been siphoning money from our joint account to pay for consultants that were actually just him hiding the paper trail. We settled out of court because he was terrified of the publicity. I got the house. I got back every cent I spent on IVF, plus damages. But money doesn't fix the scars on my stomach or the years I lost. However, there is a light at the end of this. After the divorce was final, I went back to Dr. Evans. I sat in his office alone. I still want to be a mother, I told him. He looked at my file. Sarah, he said, your egg quality was never the problem. Your uterus is healthy. You were trying to make a baby with a man who couldn't give you one, but you can still do this. I decided to use a donor. I went through one more round of IVF. It was terrifying doing it alone. No one to drive me, no one to mix the shots. But it was also peaceful. Because this time it was honest. This time, there were no lies. I remember the transfer day. I watched the screen, saw the tiny flash of light as the embryo was placed. 9 days later, I took a test. 2 pink lines. I sat on my bathroom floor, the same floor where I had wept over failures, the same floor where Mark had lied to me, and I smiled. I am currently 32 weeks pregnant with a baby girl. My journey to motherhood wasn't what I dreamed it would be. It was full of betrayal, pain, and a darkness I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy. But as I feel her kick my ribs, I know one thing for sure. She is mine. And she will grow up knowing that the truth, no matter how painful, is always better than a comfortable lie. I learned that we have to trust our intuition. If something feels wrong, in your body, in your relationship, in your medical care, question it. Dig until you find the answer. Because your life and your future is worth fighting for. I want to ask you a question, and I want you to be honest in the comments. If you found out your partner had lied about something this big to keep you, would you try to forgive them, or would you walk away immediately? Let me know down below.